Remember that you can support the podcast via Patreon. The link is below. Otherwise, stay tuned for the podcast starting now. So on the podcast today, I'm joined by Tim Whitehead, co-founder of Frankie's, an ex-professional rugby player. So thanks for joining me today, Tim.
Pleasure. No problem, Darren. Thanks for having me.
So yeah, maybe let's start off with Frankie's. And yeah, previously we've just been speaking on that, but yeah, maybe we can repeat some of the stuff we have been talking about. So Frankie's, for those that don't know, is like kind of a boutique underwear brand that was started by yourself and Sia Kalisi a few years back, and that. But like, where did that idea come from to start an underwear brand? And yeah, how did that come about?
It's quite an interesting story, Darren. I mean, I told you before we started recording this that throughout my rugby career, I always had these ideas, and I was sort of conflicted in my mind around the rugby side versus the entrepreneurship side, because I had time and I wanted to start something, but I just didn't know what the right thing was. And I had all these ideas, but I just battled to take the first step to actually launching something. I had a massive passion for travel, and in between rugby seasons, I would often just book out to a Vietnam or a US or sort of Philippines, all over the world, and not purely to try and find inspiration for business, but just to meet people. I love people, I love the people side of things. They give me energy. And one trip I took to Vietnam, I was sitting on the side of the streets in Vietnam. You've got these little plastic chairs and these little home beer brewers that they put these little kegs out in the street, and they sell you a beer for like literally about three to 5 rand, which is great. It was tough to pull me out of there, but I met this Welsh guy, and he had this super cool T-shirt on, and I'll never forget it. It was a black shirt with the word BAAS with two little dots on the first A. It was called Baas. And I said to him, dude, that's a really, really cool shirt. And he said, cool, man. Thank you. My friends and I started this clothing brand, and we built this little online store in Wales. And any money we make, we just throw in the pot and we just travel the world. And I thought that was a really cool idea. And it got me sort of exploring the whole online space, because online, I think this was about 2013. And online had hit, but it was more like a take-a-lot side. It was more the Amazon that was growing, the Superbalist, and that's all we knew. So I started exploring that a bit more, and I thought, that's a great call. I'm going to head back home. I'm going to start an e-commerce store. I don't know anything about it, but that's also the beauty of startup. Like you're forced to just learn, because if you had to pay people to do everything for you, you'd become bankrupt very, very soon. So I went home and I started researching. I spoke to Sia. I said, Sia, I want to start a business. We were mates from school. We were in high school together. We played a province together. And I just said to him, like, I want to start something. And I don't know what I'm going to sell. I don't know how I'm going to sell it, but we're going to sell it online. So, I mean, we started discussing things, and he actually booked a flight down to PE, and we had a couple of beers over it. We chatted about it. And eventually we came up with the idea underwear, because we had seen James O'Connor had just been sponsored by this underwear brand called Funky Trunks in Australia. And we thought, wow, that's interesting. We've got the Jockeys of the world, great, good underwear brands, but everything that in South Africa is sort of stemmed from international inspiration. It's not really a South African flavor, So we stumbled on the sort of printed underwear, and with the funky underwear combined with South African flavor, maybe we could make something out of that. And then we explored more the e-commerce space and different platforms. And long story short, I think it was literally about 2.5 years later where we actually launched the thing. After a hell of a lot of hard work and a hell of a lot of school fees, paying money that we actually didn't need to pay. We got ripped off a couple of times. We were just blind, and I think that's also part of the journey. I'm very risk loving. I just throw my hand in the pot, and I just get going straight away without really researching too much. And I learned from my mistakes. But if you can sort of hold back on actually launching, because you get so excited to launch, and you get so excited to create that business and launch. And I just failed to do a lot of the homework, and it burnt me at the end of the day. But I mean, it's still a lesson. I think any experience could be a lesson if you look at it in the right light.
Definitely. And yeah, maybe also speaking of that is like, what's the transition been like from rugby to business? And like, are there principles that you might have used, say, in your rugby days that are maybe relevant for business now that you can apply them there?
Yeah, it was extremely tough, and I know that it's a massive issue for a lot of ex players when they move into business because nothing negative about the rugby industry, but you earn good money for a short period of time, and you earn easy money. Yes, there's pressure, there's criticism. It's you obviously physically abused on the field on the weekends, and it takes time. I mean, you're putting your body through a lot of risk. So the amount of money you're getting paid, I think, is warranted. But in the same breath, um, moving out of that into the corporate world, and you realize what people get paid in South Africa, especially, it's a big shock, and you need to have a significant amount of experience in order to get to sort of climb that ladder in terms of payment. So for me, what I found really beneficial from the rugby days was connecting. I've tried to act as a mentor for a lot of young players post rugby because I've realized how tough it is to venture out of the rugby space, cross that bridge, and go into the workspace or the corporate space, if you want to call it that. Um, and it's strange because guys listen, but it's in the one year and out the other year, because when you're playing, it's so nice because you're getting this nice salary. Everybody wants to be your buddy, and you've got the thrill of a match every weekend, and the chicks are digging you, and it's just like everything's just working. I mean, yes, you go through some lulls as well when you have a bad performance or somebody tweets negative comments at you, whatever, but it's very minute compared to the positives. And so you don't really see it as a player. And then you speak to ex-players and you realize how tough it actually is, and everyone's stressed. I mean, there's been a big problem with suicides post-sport because of the depression side of things. There's a lot of different aspects. But one thing that I really found beneficial was connecting, because in rugby you meet a lot of cool people and you travel a lot, and people want to hear more about your rugby and what's going on, and people are interested. So you actually build nice relationships throughout the time, but it's important that you harness those relationships and keep in touch with them, and not to have the mindset of you doing that person a favor to be buddies with them. You need to actually realize that in any relationship, it's give and take. Like you can obviously, you want to be friends with people and be connected with people because they're good people first of all, and they have got potential down the line. I feel like connecting and keeping that face-to-face relationship going was pivotal, because you do business. I mean, what I felt is if we didn't know the right people in the right space, we wouldn't have even launched the thing. So that was super important. And yeah, I think one of the biggest bits of advice I give to the youngsters is try and just find a good mentor while you're playing, and try and get into something business related that you can find some sort of passion in. If it's even the mildest form, if you don't know what you want to do while you're playing rugby, whether it's maybe you might think, oh, maybe I want to be a CEO, maybe I want to sell property, maybe I want to get into cars or whatever. Just go find a mentor in that space, and for 3-4 hours on a Wednesday on your off day, just pop into the office, meet and greet, find out more about the industry, and quickly you'll realize it's either for you or it's not for you, or you do or don't enjoy it. The biggest issue is when you leave rugby, you don't get a salary. You offer this massive salary every month, and then all of a sudden there's nothing. You're still living that lifestyle of a big salary individual, and all of a sudden you're not getting anything coming in at the end of the month, and you start worrying. It's like, wow, I've got my savings are just depleting. So the sooner you can bridge that gap and get into a role and get some sort of a salary or some sort of experience, the better. But the problem is guys quit. They take a 2 month sabbatical and they're like, oh, well, I'm running out of cash here. Let me just go and sell air conditioners, or something like that. And they don't have any passion. And obviously the passion dries out because, the role dries out after 2 months because you know that you hate it. Whereas if you just got into something while you were playing, even if it was just an idea, maybe it's a sales position in any company, but you'll realize whether you like sales or don't like sales, and you can cross that off the list and move into management or people management or something. So I just try and push the guys to do something while they're playing, but then again, very, very seldom do guys actually take action and do it. But all of that being said, man, it's just making good relationships and harnessing those to use not to use, but to sort of embrace post rugby, and then trying to get involved in some sort of business stuff, even if it's a startup as well. Small startup, even if you fail while you're playing rugby, at least you'll learn a hell of a lot while you've done that startup. And then that will allow you to hopefully bridge the gap post rugby a lot faster.
Yeah, and have just mentioning that, did you study any formal stuff while playing rugby, or
I did.
what?
Well, my
Okay.
story was interesting. I went to UCT after school on a very small little bursary. Well, they offered me a 5,000 rand bursary to sort of supplement my studies, and I thought, but I had to obviously play for UCT club. I couldn't. My initial goal was just to play res league and enjoy myself and meet people through sport. So I thought, yeah, let me just help my folks out. I was very, very lucky. My folks supported me during varsity, which was sort of a completely separate topic. But yeah, I ended up playing for UCT and then studying business science. I wanted to be a CA when I was, I thought I wanted to be a CA. I actually didn't, but I'm the furthest thing from a CA. But I started studying business science, and I did 3 years of that before Western Province offered me a full-time contract, and then I tried to do both study and play rugby professionally. It was so tough. That's why I have the most tremendous amount of respect for guys like a Kali Fasaki. I don't know if you remember him. He was a hooker at the Bulls. He's a CA and played for the Bulls. Lawrence Adrians is a CA, played for Province and Stormers. He was brilliant. I mean, a lot of guys. Flip on and Mad has done really well. There's guys who can study and play rugby. It's great. But I did a business science. Got 2-3 years experience in that. It was a 5-year degree, so I didn't get sort of close to finishing. And some people say to me, why don't you just go and finish it? But I feel like it wouldn't be a waste of my time. Yes, the accreditation would look good next to my name, but right now I've realized through Frankie's and through these little business ideas that I've got involved in, and through the experience of all of it, that I'm the furthest thing away from the CA. I don't like analyzing numbers. I don't like numbers. I sort of understand it, but it's not what I want to spend my time doing. I'd rather sort of outsource that part and get other guys to do it for me, and I'll focus on the people side of a business and the marketing side of a business. So that's what I've found is my true passion through that. So that's also where I feel there's a big benefit in actually starting your own things, because you quickly realize what you're good at and what you enjoy, as opposed to just at 18 years old, you're making a decision that determines what you do for the rest of your life if you are going the university route. That's super tough. And then I also did a UCT Get Smarter short course. Great business that is. It's a Get Smarter UCT accreditation, and it's like an 8-week course that covers the basics of any industry that you're keen on exploring further. I did a commercial property brokerage, which was really beneficial as well. And that was also an avenue that I was quite keen at looking into, but I sort of decided to go my own route after exploring that further. So yes, I did a little bit of UCT studying, never got an official degree there, and then a little short course as well. I also did my SARU sports agents accreditation recently, just see if I'd be interested in helping mentor players. But I decided to go travel instead after I got that accreditation. So I've done a few things.
From about 18, then you still had that business bug, that bit kind of thing that you wanted to get into business. And it sounds like you've got quite a few ideas, that we can maybe touch on just now. One of the things as well that I wanted to ask you was about the product development, which is really important for a product, especially a clothing one. Now I do wear Frankies. I love them. They're really great quality and comfortable in that. So what kind of research did you guys do in terms of the product itself?
Good question, and I agree with you. It's pretty much one of the fundamentals of starting any business is understanding your product better than anybody else, and also understanding what your customer actually wants, not what you want to put in front of your customer. So it's a whole conversation. But in terms of perfecting the product, we were very, very lucky in that we had a connection. Once again, bringing in connections, we had a connection with the CEO of Jockey South Africa. They're based up in Durban. They manufacture all Jockey's products, and we had a meeting with them and presented our ideas. And they're I would say the best underwear manufacturer in South Africa, and they have the capabilities better than anybody else. So when it came to the men's range, which is how we launched, we actually launched solely with men's underwear first. We did a bit of a trial and error with that. I mean, I'm a very ADD individual. I'm all over the show. I'll think underwear and then I'll think socks, and before we even finish underwear, I'll go into socks. But I very seldom allow myself to get deep into one line, and that's the problem. So when it came to researching, I I read like one article. I was like, cool, I know what I want to do, which is terrible. You got to read 100 articles before you know what you want to do. So my strength came in with once again with a face to face, and I met a lot of people, and I would sort of get on the phone, and just phone and discuss, and through that way, I found out who the best manufacturers were, and who the right people to speak to were, and then I sat down with the likes of the CEOs and general managers and head of menswear of Jockey, and discussed the ideas, and they signed us on and said, cool, let's put a contract together and start launching this stuff. And then obviously once you have access to one of the best manufacturers, you get to trial and error all of their products. But in hindsight, I mean, before we got to Jockey, we did some tests we got some product samples done in was it not Mauritius? Sorry, quite a big textile country, and China, of course. We bought some stuff in, and it just wasn't up to scratch. It's difficult not having a guy on the ground when it comes to sourcing the right products from those regions. So we thought, let's stick it to South Africa, like make it like a really proudly South African product with the South African flavor. And we got to Jockey, but having an R&D side of Jockey as well, they've got some great products, and we nailed the men's. The men's worked really well. Girls love buying our stuff, but I just feel like we still have a bit of work to do with, and we are currently doing a lot of work with perfecting the ladies range. The ladies range, because it's a cotton-based fabric, a lot of girls like the lighter cotton or the seamless kind of underwear or the lace underwear because it's light and it feels like you're wearing almost nothing. And that's where we've had a bit of a teething issue. But the men's, it's just hotcakes. They just go and they just get sold. And we brought the ladies in. Obviously, we also didn't do enough research on the ladies' side. We just pretty much threw in a couple of G-strings, bikinis, and crop tops at Jockey. We said, please make these in the same fabrics, because we just wanted that whole matching underwear, matching printed garments for men and women. And we thought that that's been a really, really positive spin-off for us, because further research showed that girls are the ones that actually buy guys' underwear for them. Guys' moms and guys' sisters and guys' girlfriends, they buy undies for the boys. And if we can have the girls looking at cute matching underwear, it's just a different spin on things. So we worked really well doing that, and that's how the girls' side came about. But as mentioned, we're doing a bit of work on that just to perfect it, and we feel like the men's is there or thereabouts. But also, one of the biggest things in your product is you have to keep innovating. If you don't innovate, you'll die. People will see what you're doing, they copy you. You've got to try and stay ahead of the curve, otherwise somebody will leapfrog you and take over, and then you just won't be in the driving seat anymore. So we're constantly trying to innovate in everything. We're trying to expand on our ranges as well.
And that's quite an interesting thing you mentioned there, where the kind of the psychology of shopping or business kind of thing, where you were able to pick up trends that it was actually the girlfriends, the mothers, and all that kind of stuff buying for the guys and husbands and boyfriends and that, and being able to use that knowledge from a business perspective and bring in that matching stuff. So that's really
and then obviously pushing. Once you have that info, it's like trying to figure out how do we catch the eye of the female consumer as opposed to the male consumer. What do we present to them? Is it a lifestyle image? Is it just a product carousel image? How do they want to be seen? How are we supposed to speak to them in the caption? It's just all the subconscious stuff that we think doesn't really do anything, but it does. And I have no marketing background, but it's just through a couple of years of trial and error, we realize what works and what doesn't work. It was super interesting figuring all that out. And it was also part of the journey, the big part of the journey.
Thank you for your time today, Tim. Muchly appreciate it. And it's been quite an interesting story to listen to.
Thanks, Darren. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for having me. And hopefully this is the first of a few of these little conversations on podcast. It'll be lekker.